for many young black males in America is not bright.
More than any other group in this country, young black men are at a greater rate of imprisonment.
They're also at a greater risk of being killed and a greater risk for being unemployed.
For many young men, black men, life holds no promise and there are no opportunities. And that's a problem.
You know, I think some of the problems lie in, of course, how they're being raised and who is raising them.
Right.
So I remember when I was growing up as a young black male in America, there was educational programming on the television.
Right.
There were programs like Sesame Street. There was programs on the public broadcasting station and the public broadcasting channel that allowed, even if my parents weren't there or anybody that was there to kind of watch me, if I am watching the television, it's still educating me.
Right.
It's still teaching me about colors and shapes and numbers and other things that the fundamental things that I would need to know growing up.
Right.
But now, we don't have a lot of that programming. Now everything is about social media.
Everything is about social media, and when you stop right there and talk about that, even when I was coming up, after you, no shade, but when I was coming up, we still had, I grew up what they call the music video era. You remember as music videos? And so my grandmother would say things like, well, BET is raising these kids, but it's shifted from, we thought the music videos were bad. They were, the adults at that time did. Now, as you just mentioned, now social media is taking over everything.
And you want to know why that is?
Social media, well, why do you say that is?
I say it's taking over everything, and it's a problem because just like the videos were influencing kids and especially young black boys in America, anybody can pick up a device, whether it's an iPad, a tablet, a phone, and become an instant hit, an instant sensation over social media.
Well, let's back up even before you get to the instant sensations on social media. Anybody can have a platform on social media. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like anything else. Then it wasn't enough to just have social media. Then they started the DMs. So now you give children or young people access to a platform where they can privately have conversations that me, you, their parents, grandparents, whoever's raised them will know nothing about.
You're absolutely
so that, I feel, is the first start of an issue, but then going to the point of when you say that anybody can become a hit, social media is it's sucked up the landscape, I think, of thinking, of thinking things through. I don't knock it. I think it's great, and that brings me to the point when we say that young black men don't have a future. That's really shocking to me, given that we live in such a social media-driven age, especially for people that have talent. You have music companies now, you have movie production companies that are finding their talent right on YouTube.
Right.
So it's not all bad.
Right. And back in the day, I'd say, it used to be that these people would have to show up for auditions. They would know, or talent scouts would go out and search these certain places to find these, raw talent. But now anybody can pick up their phone and anybody can have a platform, as you said. But there's nothing or no one creditable that can validate that platform.
What do you mean validate the platform?
So if I was a talent scout and I was going out and I was searching for different singers or musicians or anybody in that arena, I am not just a talent scout. There is a company that I work for that I have to answer to if something happens, or if I do discover somebody and they become big, or if I discover someone and they become a flop. There's still somebody that I'm accountable to. In social media, in that realm, who are you accountable to? Nobody. Nobody's holding you accountable. Nobody can, validate your credibility now because you have a social media account, you have a device that you can record yourself, and you can just, depending on how many people view you and see you and like you and pay attention to you as a young black male in America, that's a problem. And I say that's a problem because you now have all of these people with all of this access to these young black males. Remember, in the beginning, we said, who's raising these children? Who's monitoring their access to social media?
Right.
I agree with you. Not all social media is bad,
Right.
but somebody has to monitor the social media accounts of the younger generation.
Well, and I think too, when we look at the greater chance of being killed, the greater rates of being imprisoned, and the lack of opportunity, speaking to the social media point you brought up earlier too, that you have young black men who are smoking weed, holding guns, just doing all types of stereotypical activity
On social media.
On social media for us all to see, but we wonder why the rate of imprisonment is higher, why there are higher likely chances of them being killed, and it's just, I can understand that aspect of the social media.
The fact is this: to say life holds no real opportunity for the young black man in America is completely false. Because there are opportunities.
Right.
And you don't have to follow the same path as other black males.
Right, but you have to be prepared. And
in whatever you do.
In whatever you do.
Absolutely agree.
And we talked about this. We had an earlier conversation when we were talking about life holds no opportunities. It depends on who you're talking to. Because now we have a generation of young people that really don't have the everyday communication skills to function in the real world. They do this all day, and if you want to talk to them, it's an emoji and you got to text them. Nobody is forcing them to use real words. You mentioned earlier about the arts in the schools. Let's look at when we were younger, or when you were younger, you talked about the arts in the schools and having programming in the schools and being able to have musical programs and drama programs.
But those opportunities no longer really exist in most schools in America because of lack of funding.
Right.
And if you're not going to fund opportunities for kids to let out all of that nervous energy, then we're going to continue to be right in the position that we're in right now, where we have to have conversations about young black males in America that feel like if they don't play basketball, if they don't play a sport, or if they don't become a musician, then what else is there left for them to do?
There's plenty left for them to do, and that's just it. I think that the menu has to expand a little bit more. If every other menu in America can expand, from sexualities to gender identities, what we give our youth can expand as well too, because just like you said, everything doesn't have to be an athlete. It just doesn't. I know when I was coming up, I was in youth in government. It taught us about debating, how to speak in public, how the House and Senate work, and how to get a bill passed. I mean, there were just different things that added to the gumbo of who I am as a person today. But it's like we keep taking the ingredients out, and it's no longer.
But the responsibility for those ingredients is the cook.
Right, the parent.
Who is raising these children?
Well, you have a lot of young parents, number one, a lot of young parents, and then you have a lot of elderly people, or not elderly, older people raising their younger children's kids, and there's a gap in communication because the thing is, grandmama don't know about YouTube. Most of them.
Most of them.
Instagram and all that. They don't understand that conversation. And I was talking not too long ago that this whole go to school, get a degree, and you're going to sell off into the sunset, life's going to be great. I was sold that, and that's a joke. It's not true. You have to be creative.
Yes.
You have to know how to play the game. And I'm sorry, I hate to call it that, but it is what it is. I mean, we talk a lot about the politics of life on all of our platforms, but you gotta know how to play this game. And going back to what we said, smoking weed, playing with guns, having a whole lot of money that the IRS is looking at on your social media.
Because they do pay attention.
They looking, boo. That's not.
They pay attention too.
That's just not. That's not what you want to do. And I think that there's got to be a level of responsibility and, as you say, accountability that has to take place, because otherwise it's not going to get any better.
True. I agree.
The fact is this: Many young black men are living day to day, and the expectation that life will get better is slim to none. The limited conditions that they know today, unfortunately for many of them, will follow them the rest of their lives. But it doesn't have to.
It doesn't. It does not have to be that way. If you think about it, if you are a young black male and you think about where you want to be 10 years from now, where you want to be 15 years from now, if you start thinking about the family you want to raise, the children, because we teach girls that all the time with their doll houses and their dream cars and all that good stuff, but we don't teach that to young black males.
No, we don't. And the one of the key things that you said, the thought has to be started, or the thought has to be planted. And when we look at how many fatherless homes that we have, I think that every young black boy or colored boy has the need. It's an inherited need for that masculine energy to be a part of their life. And I think when you don't have that, the thought or that seed, it may not be planted, because a lot of times the mamas is just trying to keep them out of trouble.
Right.
So the aspiration to dream never even is planted in the ground right there. So that's a very important point, though, and I think that.
But there's a reason why the father, even in biology, grants the identity to the child. There's a reason why that exists, because of what you just stated. It's the father's job to do more than just sit there and be the disciplinarian.
Right.
It's the father's job to make sure that that young boy of color knows that you can be anything you want to be.
Right.
Anything. You can be the president of the United States. We've seen it happen for 8 years.
Right.
You can be something more than what society says you are. You can grow up and you can live beyond the age of 21, beyond the age of 35, beyond the age of 50, because you have aspirations to do so. Because if you can see me and what I do, if I can be the example for you in how I treat that other parent, if how I treat your mom, how I treat your other siblings, then how I feel when I come in the house from work, anything. The father has to be the example to be able to say to those boys of color, you can do anything and you can be anything you want to be, because look at me.
To be the example, they have to be there. Let's start with that.
How about
They've got to be there. And I think that, unfortunately, you've got a lot of black men, and we see it all the time. Life has knocked them down. They're carrying life on their shoulder. Again, the aspiration or the seed of knowing that you can dream, unfortunately, never gets planted in a lot of young black boys' lives, because it's not there, whether the father is present or not present. And that is just sad, especially if the father is there. But I also think, too, going back, that's why it's important to have multiple positive influences.
Yes.
Because parents don't have a rule book. I'm not going to sit here and bash parents to death. I'm not going to sit here and bash fathers that are not in their kids' lives to death. Although I don't understand it, I'm not going to bash it. But kids need multiple influences. And I think that sometimes it's like they used to say, or old people used to say, it takes a village, because what mama and daddy may not be able to do, grandma and granddaddy may have been able to do, or maybe the people at the Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA were able to do. But I think that the main thing, to your point, is in order to plant that seed, black men, fathers, gotta be there.
And if it's going to take a village, you have to, as the adult in their life, be real mature and be real selective in how you select the people that are in that village that's going to have a hand in raising that young black male. I believe one way that solutions can be found in the homes of the young black males in America is it's that village. We as adults have to make sure that we are very selective in how we choose to choose the people that will be in that child's life, and they can respond and interact with your child in a healthy and effective way, whether that village and the child are in the parent's presence or if they're not, because you're not going to be with your child all the time. You can't be. But if you have that village in place, they know what you believe, you know what they believe, and you all can all raise their child productively and successfully.
No, I think that's great. I mean, it's always good to have a positive example around the child. And I also think, too, that we have to understand as a society that where we were 20, 30, 40, or 50 years ago, we're not at that same place. Everything has an update. Computers have an update. Cars have an update. And our concept of what a young black man is, it needs an update. So we need to understand, and when I say that, I want to include everybody, because guess what? We were a part of a conversation that was uncomfortable for us the other day, and every black boy is not going to be the star football player or the star basketball player or baseball player. And it's not your job to straighten them out to be that.
As a part of the village.
As a part of the village. Some people are going to be a part of other communities, such as the LGBT community. And we, as a people and as a culture, we have to learn how to embrace that, because I am sick and tired of the idea that LGBT equals failure.
Right.
And that's a problem. There are no superheroes in the LGBT community for them to see. But here's the thing. I say this because if Disney is introducing different types of characters in their lineups, again, the village, we have to, and I'm sorry, you got to evolve. It's time for an update. That's all I got to say about that. It's time for an update. You may not agree, but it's time for an update. I'm going to rush to a close like a Baptist preacher. It's time for an update. I'm done.
Are you enjoying Perspectives? We know you are, and we want to hear from you.
We're all over social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at David and Johnny. Our YouTube page is David Johnny. And hey, we're right here on RealHealthMag.com.